What if the reason that you're struggling financially isn't because of your income, but a belief that you have carried for years that is not biblical? I'm going to be talking to you about 7 beliefs that we make, especially as Christians, about money that are not biblical. Belief number 1 that a lot of Christians make is that being broke makes me humble. Many Christians confuse humility with lack. They think that, if I don't have a lot of money, or if I don't ask God for money, then that means I'm being humble. But then they forget, then how are you supposed to support your family if you don't have the resources to do so? The Bible says in Deuteronomy 8:18, and you shall remember the Lord your God, for he is the one that has given you the power to get wealth. So that right there, it tells us that God has already given us the power to create wealth. And also in Genesis 13:2 says, Abraham was very rich in livestock, and in silver and in gold. Can you imagine that the Bible is telling us that Abraham was very, very rich in livestock and in gold? In today's day and age, gold is so pricey. And can you imagine if all of us are rich in silver and gold? So as we can see, there is nowhere here in the Bible that is telling us that being broke is being humble. And that, I want to believe, is the lie from the enemy to keep us from all that God has called us to do. Belief number 2 that we tell ourselves is that as long as my bills are paid, that is enough. Paying our bills is very good, but God's vision for our lives is bigger than our bills, because most of us, we just go to work and we're just like, oh, my bills are paid. What about all the things that God has called us to do? We've been asked even, to be able, that we should be able to leave inheritance for our children's children. So how are we supposed to leave an inheritance for our children's children? Well, we're just only paying our bills. Again, I want to believe that's another lie from the enemy, who does not want us to be all that God has called to be able to create wealth. And in Genesis 12 verses 2, it says, I will bless you and you shall be a blessing. So as you can see, the Bible is already telling us that God is going to bless us. And how is he going to bless us? I want to believe here it is talking about finances. And for us, why are we being blessed? Not for our own good, to be able to take care of ourselves, but again also to be able to be a blessing. And then also in 2 Corinthians 9:8, it says, and God is able to make grace abound toward you, that you may have an abundance for every good work. So here again, we are seeing that we are supposed to have abundance of money in everything that we do. Belief number 3 is that making more money will solve all your money problems. This one is one of the biggest myths, and many people think that the more money they earn, that the more that money is gonna erase all their problems. And which is true. Money it's a good source to help us, be able to take care of our families. But sometimes when people make a lot of money, if you are a person who has problems, money is not gonna sometimes solve those problems, like especially the habits. If you have bad habits, what you have is only gonna magnify those bad habits. And in Proverbs 21:20, it says, there is a desirable treasure and oil in the dwelling of the wise, but a foolish man squanders it. You see, you can have all the money that you want, but if you're foolish with your money, you might go ahead and squander all of it. And also in Luke 16:10 says, he who is faithful with what is least will also be faithful with much. In other words, if you're faithful with the little that you have, you're going to be able to be faithful with more. So just because you're making more money doesn't mean that you're solving, that it will solve all the problems. So make sure that you are faithful with what that you have been entrusted with. Belief number 4 is that debt is just a normal part of life. which I understand in this culture, because where I grew up, debt was not normalized the way it is normalized in the Western culture. But a lot of people think that, just because I am in debt, that I will be in debt forever, of which, sometimes we get into debt because of certain different situations. And like right now, I am seeing my son, he is 19, and he's being bombarded with all these credit card offers. And I can see how, if he doesn't know better, how it is easy to just take these cards and start using them. And a lot of people, even young people, that I want to believe that's the way they start, just because if something was offered to them and they didn't know, and they're like, hey, I have this card and I don't have the money to buy a certain things, maybe I'll just go ahead and use this and I'm gonna pay. And a lot of people sometimes don't even have a plan of how they're gonna pay for that. We forget that, the Bible says in Proverbs 22:7, the rich rules over the poor, and the borrower is a servant to the lender. And Romans 13:8 says, owe no one anything but love. So let's not normalize debt, because those are some of the beliefs that even us as Christians sometimes believe that, hey, debt is normal, but debt is not normal. Belief number 5 is that money changes people. Have you ever had, how sometimes people talk and say, hey, I don't want to have a lot of money because I don't want the money to change me. And a lot of people think that when they have a lot of money, that the money is going to change them, which is so far from the truth, because when you have money, money doesn't change you. As I said before, money only magnifies what you are. If you're a great person, if you're a giver, it's just going to amplify the giver that you are. If you are a stingy person, it doesn't mean that you're going to all of a sudden find it has the opportunity to help you get money. But sometimes people think that, just because I have the money is gonna change me. Some people believe that, money is gonna corrupt me. Money, if I have money, I am gonna be this and this and that, of which, as I said, that is so far from the truth. So it is good to desire money and be all that God has already called you to be. So do not be afraid of having money. Belief number 6 is that investing is for rich people. That belief keeps a lot of Christians from building wealth. And I have heard pastors say that, like, a lot of prayers that they get, on their prayer calls is health and finances. And it's so funny that how us as believers, we're the one that are supposed to be helping people out there. But sometimes we are afraid and think that, I don't have the money to invest. And yet we are the people that God has called to be wealthy. So if you're a believer, do not be afraid to invest, and do not think that investment is only for the rich. It's about the mindset. We have to use biblical principles to build our wealth. Where, even the Bible tells us, look at the ant, it saves, it invests, if we invest little by little. And I feel like most of us, the mistake that we make is that thinking that, God is going to provide for us. We are praying people, we are tithing, we are giving, and we think that, that God is going to bring the money to us. That's a lot of mistake that a lot of Christians make. But guess what? God doesn't have money in heaven. The money is on this world. So we have to either create value to people, make sure that we are investing in ourselves, making sure that we are looking and studying and seeing, how can I invest? So that belief that investing is for the rich, it's not for the rich. Each and every one of us can be able to start investing, even if it's small. Start where you are. Maybe it's investing in stocks. Look at the stocks that are out there. Look at your tolerance and see, can I buy one stock at a time? Because there are places where you can buy one stock at a time, or even a share of a stock. So don't be afraid to invest. Do not be afraid to create wealth, because we have been called to create wealth, and God has given us the power to do that. In Matthew 25:20-21, we see the talent, the parable of the talent, where one was given 5, the other one was given 1, and each one of them used these talents very differently. So we have been given that ability to create wealth. Belief number 7 is that it is too late for me. And this I hear a lot, and even for me, myself, I have said this sometimes. It's like, it's too late for me. And who are we to tell ourselves, it is too late for me? Because how do we know? And who determines the lateness? And with this social media, and with this day and age where people, they're saying that I made $1 million when I was 18, I made $1 million when I was 20. It can put pressure on a lot of people. And if you're 40, or if you're in your 50s like me, and maybe you're not where you desire to be, it might feel like, oh my goodness, it is too late. But I love the Bible, because in the book of Joel, it says, Joel 2:25, that so I will restore to you the years that the swarming locust has eaten. If you feel like it's too late, remember, it is not too late. And God is a God of restoration, and He is able to pay you back the years that the enemy has stolen. So, but this is if you are determining to get wealthy, or if like you're feeling like it's late and the years have gone by. God is able to restore those years, but you have to show yourself faithful. What is it that you're doing to be able to create wealth at the stage of life where you are? Philippians 3:13, I love this verse where it says, forgetting those things that are behind and reaching for those which are ahead. For me, when I look at this verse, it reminds me that, I have to forget what is in the past, and I have to reach what is ahead, because I know that ahead, that there is so much more than what is behind. Because even when you're maybe in your past, maybe you are not the person who could be able to attain the wealth that God has called you to do. So be better, educate yourself, look into what that you can do. And I feel like even as we get older, we become wiser, and we can use that wisdom to be able to create wealth better than maybe when we were younger. I love this saying where it says that the best time to start may have been years ago, but the second best time is today. So today also is your best day. If you're in your 50s, if you're in your 60s, and if you're in your 70s, it's never too late, because our God is a God of restoration, and He's able, as I said, to restore all the years that the enemy has stolen. Just remember, most of the changes that we desire financially, they do not start with a race from our prayer. It starts with our mindset. So if we can change the mindset that we have, we can be able to be all that God has called us to do. And also the Bible talks about, renewing our mind. Let us renew our minds to be able to get those things that God has called us to be. I hope this video was helpful and it helped you to renew your mind. Let me know in the comment which was your biggest takeaway. And if you liked this, please make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.